And boom, we are back. Episode 14 of the CanCast. Look at this is how bad it is, man. We took such a long break from the show. I'm so rusty. I still can't get it figured out.
What did you say it was?
CanCast something.
I thought he said can blast.
Yeah, we're just having
Something
such a
like
blast. I don't know. It's like it's been a long day, but I am on holiday starting tomorrow.
Me too.
I've heard you're on holidays every day starting last week.
I know,
and
it
then
never went anywhere.
Never happens. Never happens.
I worked today.
Did you get it all done?
I'm probably gonna have to work some days, but it's fine. We're gonna get her done. No, I'm taking some time. I got some sweet golf clubs. I'm gonna try them out
Oh, nice.
On Wednesday, right?
Wednesday.
Wednesday's a pretty special day for you and your lady, no?
It is. That's right. How did you know that?
Wow.
Did I tell you that
I talk to your
yesterday?
lady all the time.
Oh,
I talked to her today twice.
wow.
Twice, buddy.
Jeez, what is wrong with you guys? That's right.
Honestly, I did.
10-year wedding anniversary.
That's good. Congratulations.
Yeah, I feel like 10 years.
10 years? That's
an-
pretty good. That's good, man. You guys are past that 7-year hump, right? That's like the pinnacle if you're going to make it or not.
Really?
After 7 years, the
I always
rest is
said
downhill.
I always said I would never get married again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm at 6 years
Here you
right
are.
now. So
Married again.
You're not at 6 years.
yeah, we've been together 6 years.
Show me the ring.
Oh,
It's
together
on her
we're like
finger.
13. We already told the ring story last episode. We
No,
did
show
it.
me
No.
Sean's ring.
No, I don't wear a ring.
He's a carpenter, man. He actually works. He's not a window guy.
Yeah, I know.
Those fingers there, man, that's not a ring. It's a bracelet.
Well,
Yeah. All right, but Mark, before we introduce our guest, too, we're going to introduce him right now because he's here. Nick Cousvis. Nick, we're so pumped that you're here, man. We're going to give you a big round of applause.
Oh, thanks.
Here we go.
I'm happy to be here.
That's
Thanks.
awesome.
Thank you very much.
I feel like I'm going to lead this conversation a better angler.
Me too.
I'm super pumped to be
Yeah,
here.
so we've been
Or
talking
worse.
about having you for a while, and we're pretty pumped to have you in here because we're gonna learn a lot. We got a lot of questions that people DM'd us. We're not gonna say your name because a lot of them were the same question. A lot of smallmouth stuff, of course, a lot of Megabass stuff. But before we get into all to that, and before we hand it over to our guest and put him on the spot, Mark, I have a present for you. 'Cause
You do,
Your
eh?
birthday's coming up, right?
It is.
And we're not gonna be able to do an episode before your birthday, so I wanted to give it to you tonight.
Okay, let's do it.
right.
Oh my God, I'm scared.
Sorry about the rapid drop. That's all I have. Check it out. Hold it up to the camera.
Merry birthday.
Merry
Hold it up to the
birthday.
camera. Yeah.
You're the best. Oh, it's in pink too.
Yeah. So wait 1
Oh.
second. Sean, make sure that thing's recording up there. That's an amateur level.
no.
Because this is so good that if it's not read and recording on the phone, we're gonna have to redo this one.
I already know it's
Oh, we're
coming
good to
because I
go.
looked in
Oh.
it.
It's recording. Numbers are in red. Yeah, we're good.
Oh
All right.
boy,
Here
you
we
ready
go.
for this?
Open it up.
I don't expect anything different from you, bud. A box of Kleenexes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you're gonna need those to wipe the tears after I kick your ass on the weekend.
It's pretty funny
I
because
love it.
Kyle sent me a message today. I'm looking for a couple rods, and he says, I'm only bringing 3 rods. That's all I need to beat you. I said, no, you need to be someone else to beat me.
Yeah, so he messaged me. He's like, "Hey, the rest of my pro staff orders show up," and I'm like, "Man, what rod were you waiting on? Like, remind me," because I wasn't near my computer, right? And he's like, this one or this one," and I'm like, "Man, this will come in my garage tonight. I got 100 rods. I only need 3 to beat you."
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But seriously though, if you want, you open these like this. So like if you got,
I'm sure you know
he's
how to
got
open
lots
them.
of boxes of those.
Oh yeah.
You didn't get these from your bedside table, did you?
No.
That's funny because a couple of years ago, his wife, for his birthday, his wife was actually going out of town. For his birthday, I got him a sock.
Yeah, one.
One sock.
That's what I got for my birthday from Sean. One sock.
His wife was leaving for a month.
Yeah, man.
So got him a sock.
I think that's a great gift.
Right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it lasts longer than the box of tissues.
You know, sports sock too. So I felt like, well,
Yeah.
Like
So-
an athlete.
I'm just
Yeah.
I'm just gonna apologize in advance. Our sound might be a little echoey tonight because we had to take those bears off the wall. They absorbed all our sound.
Yeah, that tick, tick, tick's happening.
So
Yeah, I
but
hear
we
it
can,
too.
we can
I didn't
fix
want to
the-
say anything.
We can fix the tick, tick, tick. Like I said, I'm a brutal producer. We're gonna sub this out soon. But I'm great talking. But in all seriousness, I think if it's a little off tonight, guys, I apologize, and I'm sorry in advance, Nick. But I think it's gonna sound great. So
That's good.
So Nick, we got you in here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You're an accomplished tournament angler. You're a guide. You're full-time rep for Megabass now. Kind of tell us about like how you got in the industry and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, growing up as a kid, I mean, it's all I ever thought about was fishing. I remember being in school and drawing pictures of bass boats and fish jumping out of the water, which reflected my marks in school. But I started as a tournament guy. I've always been competitive. I was in sports my whole life, and from the tournament thing, I just wanted to do more. I love the the whole promotion of the products and the promotion of the sport. I really love to like get new people in and sort of teach them, what I did. I mean, like, all I did was fish. That's all I did when I was a kid. So my job, any job I ever took, I tried to make as much money as I can so I can afford fishing. That's what it was. Passion was never the work. It was just to get out fishing. So I thought, well, why not try and do something in the industry? So now I'm doing what I love to do right around. I'm on the water, and when I'm not on the water, I still love doing it. So Megabass picked me up about 9 years ago. I was the only Canadian staffer at the time here. And I always told them that I wanted to, have a bigger role. If you guys needed something else or needed me to do more, that I'd be there. And, just cards sort of fell the way they did. And I got lucky. And, the opportunity opened up where they wanted me to do some repping for them, not just in Canada, but in the U.S. So I get to travel a lot, visit a lot of different stores, and love the brand. So it's just easy to sell something when you're passionate about it. And, it was never just a sponsorship for me. And I never really went after any sponsorship that I didn't believe in the product. It wasn't just about putting a name on my shirt, but if I believed in it, I felt like I could sell it and promote it right. And Megabass just worked out. So I'm still with them now. I've been running around some stores in the U.S. and just having a blast. I'm blessed, man. It's been a great ride, and hopefully, the way life goes, man, you just got to ride it till it ends, and hopefully it doesn't end anytime soon.
No, for sure. And like, you've always been known, at least as long as I've been around in the industry, even before you were, like when you said you were just staffing for him, and you've always been known as like the Megabass guy.
Yeah.
Like, I still remember the boats, the wraps, you know what I mean? So it's like, hey, that's Nick, that's the Megabass guy, right? And it's just, you did such a good job at making that brand look like it has such a huge presence in Canada, which it does. And it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger every day.
Yeah.
And the one thing we preach on the show about CanCast is we just want to bring all the industry together. I don't care what you fish. We're all buddies. We want to talk about fishing and grow the sport. That's why I wanted to have you come on and talk about some stuff. So we have a lot of questions that came in, and we want a lot of smallmouth questions. The smallmouth craze is on. It's not going anywhere. It's been on, but everyone's like, how do I figure a smallmouth? We're like, we need Nick. Nick's one of the guys. So there's two people that can really break down product in Canada. I feel like do it really well. And I feel like JP the Rose and you are the second guy who can, like, you two can like break anything down, talk about it, some of the best seminars. And I really wanted to have you in, so I appreciate you coming in. So
thanks for having me, man. I'm pumped. Let's go.
I'm going to start it off easy because I've had a hard time getting on this Megabass train. All right? And it's because my wallet, I hold it tight. Right? And I'm sitting there, and Jasper and me were at one of the fishing shows, and Jasper, being a good friend, I'm like, Jasper, what is all the fuss about this stuff? Like, why are you guys spending like $36-$38 on a jerkbait? Like, and he's like, Kyle, trust me, you gotta try it. And I never did. And then I'm out, I'm hanging out with the Peterborough Pro Tackle guys. I'm in their store, and I'm like, now another huge selection, right? This like Jasper at Pro J, Peterborough's, Ganyon's got some. We'll go through all the dealers here in Ontario, but and I say, and like those guys, they are Megabass freaks, and then they're fishing it all the time, and they're catching fish, like good fish, right? Like those guys can. It's the same thing. So I was talking to those guys about it, and they're like, well, this is why, and you're fishing it wrong, and you need this kind of setup. So I want to start with the Vision 110 because I think when guys think Megabass, I personally think Vision 110.
Is that their most popular bait?
Yeah, by far still is, even though the platform has grown so much more. But the 110 plus one, it is like exponentially larger than anything. I mean,
the flagship bait.
It really is. Yeah, I mean, that's what made the name. Do you guys know the story behind the 110 and how it got to North America?
No, let's
hear it.
Okay, so Japan, Ito came over here, who's the president of Megabass of America, and he wanted to get the brand into the U.S. So what he did, he started visiting dealers, went around to dealers in the U.S., and he said, I want to have a tournament against you or your pro, whatever it is. I only use this 110. They can use whatever they have in your shop. And if I win, you have to bring my product into the store. If he wins, I'll come in and buy I think it was like $1,000 of product. I'll just come in and buy that. That's how you win. Okay, great. So that's what he did. He went around winning all these tournaments, fishing one bait, the 110. And that's how it sort of got into the U.S. and then it grew popularity. I remember growing up when we started getting serious in the tournaments, the jerkbait was a big thing. It was actually a buddy of mine that started throwing it at first. but we would always tinker with our baits, always try to figure out how to get the best out of it, especially when we transitioned from largemouth to smallmouth. So we were throwing a lot of the thunder sticks, which I can't remember. Is a Bomber that made thunder stick? I could be wrong.
I'm not sure.
And then the Smithwick Rogue was
The Rogue,
slowly
yeah.
after that. Yeah. Now, those baits, you really had to use heavy tackle to get it to do what you need it to do for fish to eat it. Because, you know, so many guys can get fish to follow, but to get them to bite was the issue. And when they were on fire, you might get one or two. But come tournament time, when they're sluggish and they see a lot of boats, they get really weary and they'd follow. So guys would be frustrated. They couldn't get, man, I don't know how you get them bite. So we would tinker around and we would work them with suspend dots. And we had this, I wish I brought it. So we had this Bomber, or Thunderstick, I should say, and it would have 10 suspend dots under the chin. It almost looked like a mini can.
Can you send me a picture of it? We'll
I
post
will,
it up.
yeah, absolutely.
With the episode.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's how we made it suspend, because it would float like a cork. And then you really had to hit it hard to get the bait to swing or wouldn't swing. So we were using like 6'6" jigging, walleye jigging rods, like rip rods. So stiff, straight braid, no leader material on it at all to get it to really move. And they would eat it and they would absolutely crush it, pull your arm out. But, you know, the wear and tear that your body took hitting that thing so hard. I remember the first classic I did on Lake Simcoe. I just figured that I had 2 good days in me. And then the third day, my hands would start to get swollen. They'd swell up. My wrist, my elbow was sore, my shoulder was sore. So I'd have 2 solid days. The third day, I had maybe 2-3 hours, and I'm done. And that's all I'd get out of it. But we won some tournaments doing that. We were very consistent. Had a lot of top 5s. I mean, the problem with the jerkbait is that you lose fish, right? It's just nothing you can do because it's the one bait where it's not like a swim bait where you're reeling it and the fish grabs it, or a jig where it's on the bottom, you feel them and you set the hook. You don't know when the strike's going to come with a jerkbait. It could come on the pause. It could come when you're about to rip it. So it's always a surprise. And then now imagine now you get this fish that eats it at the wrong time, when it's always the wrong time because you don't anticipate it. And now that fish takes off and you're trying to reel it in to get a second hook in him, and he's flying out of the water and he's gone. So when Megabass came out and I found them in Japan and ordered some, I remember the first day I was on the water with a buddy of mine and I said, man, we're in big trouble. And he's like, why? And I'm like, this bait is so easy to use that everybody's going to catch fish on this bait.
So what year was this?
This would have been like around 2005.
Okay.
2002. Yeah, 2004, 2005. And then they started coming into the U.S. and that's how I met. There was a rep here in Canada. I didn't know him at the time, but he was bringing them in, and then sort of we became friends after that. I showed him my collection of like 3 tackle boxes with these colors from Japan. But, you know, I've won and lost so many tournaments on that one bait. The only other rod I would have I'd have like 4 rods with a 110 and a 110 plus 1, and then I'd have 1 or 2 with either a drop shot or a tube just to pick up a follow-up fish. But it was it's addictive to fish that bait because you're constantly seeing how that fish is reacting to it. They follow it to the boat, and now you have about a 5-second minute or span that you have to figure out what that move is to get him to eat it or he's swimming away. And it was just so like the energy that you had in your body, like watching this all day long, kept you going. So even when you weren't getting bit, you were always trying to figure it out. And it was addictive, but it's tough to do it all day. And now I've gotten older. I mean, I still fish it and I fish it a lot, but I have other stuff because you got to have a break off it. But it's a bait from just an enjoyment perspective. I love going up north and fishing those smaller lakes and throwing a jerk bait. They absolutely smash it, and it's a blast. The only thing I think about that's better is a topwater strike. But the jerk bait thing is just, you know, we used to call guys that fish drop shot. You guys are like, you know, wussies, man. Like I can't even say the word, but yeah, like, you know, yeah.
We know the word you're talking about.
We don't use that. We don't use those sticks, man. You know, you want to be a man or you want to be a boy, right? That kind of thing. So, but it is, you know, there's a reason that you're paying that kind of money, because we get this all the time. We get into shows, and, you know, the more and more we do the Bassmasters Classic, we have guys constantly coming into our booth, and it's a culture, right? It's a lifestyle. Like, these guys buy these baits because they know they catch fish, And there are other guys that are always trying to disprove it and throw everything else because they don't want to spend the money. But at the end of the day, there is no better jerk bait than a Megabass 110 in shallow water, and there's no better jerk bait than a +1. Now, don't get me wrong. There are other baits that are good out there, and they catch fish. I'm not going to sit here and tell you if you're not throwing a 110, you're not going to catch fish. You will. But day in and day out, thank you so much. That 110, it's hard to beat it. If you're fishing against a guy that knows how to throw a jerk bait, that bait's tough. And it's the proof is in the pudding when you go around and you look at all these tournaments, especially the higher level ones, the elites, the BASS, all. There is not a pro out there that doesn't have a box of 110s. Doesn't matter who he's sponsored by, they all have them in their boat.
So I want to address when I was first researching this Megabass stuff, and I remember a few years ago I asked you this question at a fishing show at Jack Astor's. You're sitting on one side, right? You remember the question already, don't you?
No, I don't.
No?
I don't know.
Okay, why do people give it a reputation of having bad hooks? Talk about the hooks. They're not bad. You explained it to me, and it all makes sense. But let's hear it for the listeners.
Yeah. So this happens to almost everybody that comes in our booth. If you're going to get a negative thing, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be about the hooks, right? It's going to be about the hooks, and then some guys will break the bills. So you understand that the science behind that bait, everything is tuned so perfectly to make it do what it does with less effort from the angler. So I can take that bait with even mono, make a long cast with it, and pop it like this, and that bait's going to move. I've done it because I've had my wife go out into a shallow part of the beach. She'll go out there, and I'll whip the bait out there as far as I can, and I ask her, hey, how much is that bait moving when I hit it on mono with all that stretch, and it still moves? You just can't do that with every kind of jerk bait. But what happens here in North America, the North American angler has been accustomed to using a heavier, beefier, stoutier rod than what the Japanese. Japanese they use a lot of finesse stuff. Our rods are built to match exactly what you're doing with that bait to get it to do what it do with the least amount of effort, right? But you got guys now throwing 10, 12 pound, 14 pound tests, and they're popping that bait hard. When they get a fish, now they're reeling it so hard. They're putting so much pressure on that fish that those hooks are thin and they'll bend. And if they don't bend on the fight, you get them in the net. Now that fish is thrashing around. You're using pliers. They're going to bend and break. I tell guys, look, this is the best hook for that bait. Gammy came out with the Finesse series, and it's a good hook too. Aaron Martins was with them at the time, and they built that hook for the 110 to match it by weight. It's a good hook too. But I tell guys all the time, man, that out barb is sticky. It's all about your tackle, getting a little bit lighter, going to say 10-pound test, longer lead on your fluorocarbon, or go straight fluoro on your bait caster. If you're on a spinning, it's always better to go braid. I'll go to J braid, a 10-pound J braid, to say 8 or 10-pound fluorocarbon. I'll lengthen that leader just to give me a little bit more stretch.
So sorry to interrupt you. So one of the questions we got it multiple times was for jerk baiting. Mm-hmm. You're talking about your setup, spinning or casting. What do you prefer?
Yeah. So my answers changed over the years. I was straight spinning, and the reason I went straight spinning, look, we fish a lot of clear water lakes, so casting distance is key. You can cast. Back then, you can cast on a spinning rod. You can get that bait to go an extra 20 yards, 25 yards, which a lot of time, I used to do this thing. I had this little diagram that I called the 3-ring circus. And what it was like, if you can picture, so this is the surface of the water. This is your boat. And then there's 3 rings. There's a ring here, a ring there, and a ring there. The last ring represented the furthest cast you can make, right? So the edge of that ring is where that bait would drop in the water. That first ring is your best chance to get a fish to bite because it's the furthest away from the boat. Even though they probably know you're there, but they're not as spooked way out there. So if you have braid to your spinning rod, now you have less stretch and you can get that bait to move more aggressively. And in our clear water, in the summertime, a lot of guys grew up watching guys throwing jerk baits, but they watch them in the States in colder water conditions, and they do very long pauses because those fish are cold-blooded, their metabolism rate is super slow, and they just don't have the energy to go chase something fast. So it would be more like a tap, let it sit. Sometimes 10 to 15 seconds, then you get a bite. But in the summertime, if you do that, you're not going to get bit. A big smallmouth in this clear water is going to come over there. They're going to just see too much information. So the whole point is that you want to cast it out there, reel it down, and then just like pop, 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 stop, pop, 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 stop, pop, 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 stop. So you're still pausing it, but really short. Once that bait left that first circle, that middle circle now is closer to the boat. Now they get a little bit tentative because they know the boat's there. They hear the trolling motor. They hear the graphics. So a lot of times from then, they'll start to follow it. They're interested. And in that last circle is when they're right at the boat. That's when you can visually see them. A lot of guys will just keep doing the same thing, and that fish will follow and then just swim away. That's when you have to be a little creative with what you do with it. So whether you pause it, stop, give it a quick tap. I always tell my customers, look, when you see that fish coming to the bait, what you want to do is get that bait to move without moving it closer to the boat. It's hard to do. So the rod is super important in how you finesse that bait. But I want to pop it and get it to kind of twitch this way, but not go like this and get too close to the boat because then they take off. At that point, you only have like half a second where that fish is either committing to it or he's gone. But if I can make it move and not get too much closer, he might look at it long enough and go and eat it. A lot of the fish that we caught, actually, it's kind of like musky fishing. It would happen right at the boat. Yeah. That's where most of them, and that's where the trouble comes in too. Because now you got a 5-pound smallmouth that hits at the boat, and they're insane.
100-mile-an-hour fish.
Yeah, 100 mile an hour. So that's why I went to that longer lead, because when they would eat it, a lot of times you only had the fluorocarbon, and you'd have some stretch there, so they're not ripping the hooks out. If you get them from far away, and I would change that lead. It's crazy because I would dial in differently. So if my strikes were coming way out there, and I had, say, a 14-foot lead, and I was consistently getting them far away, I would shorten that lead to 5 to 7 feet. Because now I have less stretch in that line, I'm going to get a better hookup from a distance away.
Right.
If they're eating close, then I go longer, so I get more stretch, so that when I get the fish, he's not, because you just pull the hooks out and it's gone. Mm-hmm. The bait caster, I find you get more to the boat. It's hard to explain, but somehow just the way they're built, I just feel like, so I go straight fluoro, no braid. Once they hit it, it just feels like there's more power in that rod. The tips are not as light, and you get better hook set in, even though they hit it at those weird times. I get more. So I kind of play with both. But generally, if I'm trying to fire it out there, I use spinning. Now, nowadays, you think of like the Tatula SVTW, all these new reels that are coming out, the casting performance is outstanding. So you really start to get close to the distance that you'll get on a spinning on a bait caster. So again, if I'm using a 110, I prefer the bait caster. If I'm using the +1, I go to a spinning. The action's completely different. The way I fish it is different. I feel like I can get better action with the bait caster on the 110 and better action with the spinning on the +1.
So go ahead, Mark.
Okay. When you're setting the hook, are you sweeping? Is it sweep to the side? Is it a sweep up? Is there any advantage to a certain way?
Honestly, I sweep to the side, and a lot of guys try to sweep, they go up. I don't really know that the thing is, when I'm sweeping sideways, the reason I do that, because when I sweep up, you only have so far to go and you have to stop at that point. When I sweep sideways, I can pull back much further than I can if I go up. So I go side. All you're trying to do at that point, they've got that bait in its mouth. You're just trying to push those hooks further in and try and hopefully get a barb in there or two, and again, you're at the mercy of that fish. If they eat that back hook, that's generally when you lose it. If they eat it all, you almost always get them to the boat.
In your opinion, when that fish hits that bait, he knows his hook. He goes sky.
Yeah.
How many times do you think that those hooks aren't even in it? The reason why you're losing that fish is because he just opens his mouth and spits the bait, because they grab onto it hard, right? So you really got to drive that hook.
Yeah.
Correct?
I drive it. Like I hit it hard, especially too, you're thinking like on a bait cast, I'm going straight floral. I'm using like a 110 stick, which is only like a 6.5 jerkbait P5 rod. But man, that rod, I can finesse it like no other. The 110 special is 6'11". It's a great rod, but I'm a smaller guy, so I just find that rod's just too much rod for me. I can't. It's great if I'm throwing it out there and I'm just, doing whatever. But when I really want to finesse that bait, that 6'5", that 110 stick, I tell the guys, look, it's short and maybe you're not used to it, but you put on a Tatula SVTW or, that like extreme casting reel, dude, you can wing that bait out there. The only thing that rod lacks is leverage on a long cast. But if I'm getting bit close to the boat or mid-range close, then I get most of them to the boat.
I just learned more about jerkbait in the last 5 minutes than all the YouTube videos I've watched in the last 5 years.
Okay, now what about drag on your spinning reel? How loose do you have that? Can you actually hear it coming out when you're jerking?
No. So I tighten it again. So I adjust. So I tighten it when they're eating out. If they're eating close, then yeah, I'll have that drag set a bit differently, because if they eat it near the boat, so it's a two-way thing. If they eat it near the boat, the good thing is if you have it tight, the hooks will go in. The bad news is now you got an angry 5-pound smallmouth, 6-7 feet away from you, and if you don't have any drag, more than likely he's going to break a hook or open those hooks up or release. I mean, those fish are built they're like machines. They're just different than largemouth. I can't even tell you that I can count how many largemouth I've lost on a jerkbait in one hand. But I can have all our hands together, and then everybody else we can find in the next hour on how many. I mean, it's one of those baits where it's like I said, I've won tournaments with it, and I've lost as many.
Just get a good look at this 110.
Yeah.
So that's what's going to beat you on the weekend.
It's the wrong color, dude.
It's not the wrong color. I'm so confident in this color, I won't even show the camera. Speaking of colors, though, Nick, if you're going to just go okay.
Yeah.
So I'm a guy, I'm going to go buy my First Vision 110, but I'm only going to buy one because I'm holding my wallet tight.
Right.
Which we've already discussed. They're worth it. So that forget the money. It's worth it, right?
Yeah.
What color would you buy? You can only buy one. How many colors are there?
Oh, there's over 100.
Okay, so you only buy one, though. What are you taking for, let's say for this area, we'll say the Cousvis or Ontario.
Yeah.
Because we got everything.
So look, I'll keep it simple. If you're fishing a perched base lake, perch or sunfish, I'm going to go to a perch pattern, a sunfish pattern. That's going to be my deal. If I'm out where there's a lot of shad and stuff, then I'm going to go to like a sustained reaction, like white, something clear, maybe a pro blue. Here's the thing about jerkbait. So I get this all the time. What's your favorite color? I don't have a favorite color. There was a time I did, but the more I fished them, there are basically three types of, there's a few more, but let's just say three major paint variations that we make. One would be like opaque. So it's kind of like this. This would be like a French pearl. There's a little bit of shine to it. But you see when I put it up to the light, it gives you that kind of go. So light penetrates it, and it gives it that kind of matte sort of finish. This is great. Any of our, we might have, 6, 7, 8, 9 different colors that are like this. This would be great in low light conditions, so early in the morning and in cloud. I love these opaque colors. So I'm looking at conditions. That's the first thing I think about, because my idea is, what are the fish going to see best, right? Mm-hmm. Then if it's super calm, flat, sunny, the fish are spooky, I go to this more of a translucent color. So you can see it's very like skeleton, ghost-like. This is great on those flat, calm days, sun high. Maybe if I'm fishing behind some boats and I'm trying to get a bite or two extra, I'm gonna go to a smaller bait and go to this style color. They see it, but they don't really get a great look at it, and they tend to react better. Now, I always say, look, there's no absolute. It's not always going to be that way, but this is my starting point. I look at conditions. This is my conditions. It's sunny. It's early in the morning. I'm going to throw opaque. That's what I'm throwing.
Now, the opaques and the translucent, for lack of a better word, do they come in patterns, or are they just that same?
No, they come in lots. See, this is like I think this is a pro green or a crystal shad. We have a couple different ones that are, with green back, very clear. We have a pro blue like this. There's a bunch of them. There's OPS or OSP.
And like if you're looking at colors, if you're at home listening to this, the Megabass website's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at it right now. We got it pulled up. Like everything pops up. You go by lure, color, like everything. Like if you're going to shop, right?
That's right.
Or if you go on any of the retailer websites, most of those guys have all the images up. Like now we have a ton of listeners from all over North America. Yeah. We got a lot of US guys. We got a ton of guys here in Ontario. But just for local sake, for CanCast Show, which happens in Peterborough, who are the main Megabass guys in Canada?
So in Canada, for sure, Peterborough Pro Tackle. I was just over there talking to the guys there. I mean, they do a great job. Wait. Were you talking to them?
Yeah, is that the reason you went?
Why'd you go?
Well, okay, you know what? So we just came back from the Thousand Islands Open. I put a $10 bet down with Travis. He's the owner of the store. They won, so I told them, I said, hey, listen, a bet's a bet. I'm going to drive over there and give you $10. So I did. I signed it for him. I gave him the GFY in there and moved on. Moved on to the next one. I'm like, hold it, enjoy it, because next year I'm taking it back from you.
Good, man. Good inflation.
It's probably on the
$20.
Yeah,
It's
that's
probably on
right,
the
yeah.
wall right now.
Yeah.
So we got Peterborough.
Yeah, Peterborough
Yep.
Pro. Jasper at Pro J's is obviously a great store in Toronto if you're in the Toronto area. Ganyon's in Oshawa. There's Pro Advantage in Belleville, very good store. Great selection there. We have Cole over there at Angling Sports in London.
Oh yeah, great store.
Cole Bailey.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got a new store in Cornwall that opened up called Tight Lines. Really cool dude there. He's actually opened up his store. Was like a little tackle section in a flower store.
Yeah,
Somebody
really?
told me
I think I
about
heard
this. I'm
about
like,
that.
no way.
Yeah.
He's a cool dude.
Yeah, so now he ended up buying the back end and opened it up, and he's been really good. He sells a lot of high-end product, and he's got great clientele. That's a great store.
Is he like a marketing genius or what? You go in there, you spend your $300 on tackle, you grab your
Unbelievable.
wife a bouquet on the way out the door. She doesn't say crap to you after.
No.
Like it's like honestly,
It's
brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That guy won. That guy won the award.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Fishing World in Hamilton is now, they've been a long time Megabass dealer. They're good guys. Mike and Jim down there, they do a good job. I'm trying to think who I'm missing here. There's obviously somebody. There's a couple other small stores.
Bass City still do Megabass?
No, Bass City doesn't do Megabass. You know who else I forgot? Elwood Epps up in Aurelia.
Oh, of course.
That
Corey
guy
and the
does a
guys.
great
Yeah.
job. Corey's good. Him and his wife do a good job.
Yep.
There's a couple of the small ones, but those are the big players. There's some new ones coming up very soon. But
So basically, anywhere you live in Southern Ontario, there's going to be a Megabass dealer
absolutely.
pretty close. You might have to drive a little bit, but it's not a ridiculous drive.
no, I'd say anywhere you're in within an hour, unless you're way up. Even up north, Kenora is
Lake of the Woods?
Lake of the Woods.
Oh, what a fantastic store.
Yeah, great store.
Brian's store has such a great reputation. I can't wait to go up and see it in person.
I would love to.
Yeah,
Me too.
And just amazing.
Have you been up there, Nick?
I've never been. I want to go fish that tournament up there. Here, it's so much
Sounds
fun.
like a business
man.
trip for you.
Yeah, I think it might be.
I hear that's like one of the, what do they call that one again? The
That's called the
Fort. Is it the Fort Francis?
Fort Francis Bass Champion or Canadian.
It's amazing. They like
It's
set up
huge,
a
right?
huge tent. You do
Yeah.
like drive-through weigh-in. It's like the biggest bass tournament in Canada, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it is.
We should go next year.
I think we should, like, everybody should go. It's 24-hour drive.
You
Make
know
a
what?
trip out of
But
it.
if we get a convoy, like
We
10
all travel
boats.
pretty good together.
I'm
too,
pretty
right?
sure. Yeah.
10 boats going together
That
would be a
would be
As
blast.
long as the window's open, if you're traveling with this clown.
So like we spent a ton of time on the 110 and like we're gonna have to have you back for another episode because there's so much info that's coming. But my mind's spinning right now. So I'm pumped. Nick did bring me a little gift to beat Mark with this weekend. I'm gonna have to post
Jeez.
this after the qualifiers so nobody gets on to all these techniques. But just kidding.
Right.
But what is next? So like what I'm and I apologize, it might not be, I feel like I'm very in tune with the industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel like I always like shied away from the JDM stuff for some reason, right? Because I was, but now I'm like,
Because you're too cheap.
I'm going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
What else are you guys known for? Like, what's your next thing that you're like, hey man, you gotta have one of these in your tackle box?
So the Dark Sleeper's been around for a long time. This is a bestseller actually in Tackle Warehouse. Anywhere we go in North America, we have customers coming in and telling us how many fish they catch on this. It really is like there's no technique that you can't do with it. We have a proprietary head in here. The jig head's already in here. The hook is in the dorsal fin, so it's hidden in the dorsal fin.
So the jig head's in there. It's
Brilliant.
Everything's in there.
You get them in different sizes.
Yeah,
and weights?
so we have a 2.4, a 3-inch, and a 3.8, I believe. Anywhere from 1/4 ounce all the way to 1 ounce, the big ones. But it's very flat on the bottom, so it's never going to turn on you when it sinks down. So it'll sink down, it'll settle on the bottom, and then you can fish it any way. You can just swim it, crawl it along the bottom. You can hop it like a jib. You could pitch it into like docks and trees. It's very snag resistant. This has been around for a long time. It's caught a lot of fish.
like, would that be a good substitute to like when they're not biting a tube?
Absolutely. Super slow, very natural.
Could you leave that one here? No.
Yeah, absolutely. Here you go. That's for the show.
Would you consider that weedless?
It is. Now, look, it's going to catch
Can I
some
see it,
weeds.
Nick? Let's
Yeah,
pass these
absolutely.
around. Let's take a look at them.
Yeah. You can't throw that into the thickest cover. You can throw it into pockets. But,
that-
like I said, guys will use it in
Check
many
that out.
different ways.
What do you mean, check that out? Do you know how many of those I own?
Yeah.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Look, I'm not gonna lie.
Nick's giving up the juice.
I did this episode for selfish reasons,
Right.
Just so I can learn. But you're right, because You're giving up the juice, man. So.
Yeah, and it works everywhere.
Beautiful bait.
Inland lakes, the Great Lakes. I get people message me all the time. I use that dark sleeper. It's all I catch my fish on. Lake Simcoe. It doesn't matter. Clear, dirty water, it all works. Then we came out last year with the sleeper gill.
Now, this one I do know about.
Okay, so this is three-quarter ounce head. It allows you, because it's so heavy, it allows you to cast it very far. It doesn't feel like a 3/4 ounce bait in the water. So far, because I'm mostly a smallmouth guy, this tends to be really good around weeds. Really good. I would pin it more as a largemouth bait, not to tell you that you're not going to catch a smallmouth on it, because smallmouth eat bluegill, but this is a real special bait for largemouth. There are many different ways to fish it like that, but what I found with this one that's really cool is what I like to do is cast it on the edge of like shallow weeds or like clumpy weeds with rock or sand. I'll whip it out there. I'll let it sink for a sec, and I start reeling it. So picture this thing swimming above a fish's head. What I like to do is reel it real quick so that it comes out of the water. It breaks the surface, the tail flaps, and then I kill it.
Gotcha.
So it just looks like a spooked. The profile is exactly like a small little bluegill.
Do you know how many people just stopped, rewinded that 15 seconds, to listen to that again?
Yeah.
Listen,
How does he do
folks,
it?
It's
Nick is giving you guys stuff that he took years. Like, these guys took years to figure out.
Yeah.
Listen to this. Listen, that is awesome.
And it must work, because I'm telling you right now, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but there is actually line tied to that one. So he's cut that off a rod to show you guys.
Yeah, and again, same thing. The hook is embedded into the dorsal fin. The bite is good. The hookup ratio is really good. The only thing I like to do with this, if you look at it, the hook is bent in a little bit. I'll just take a pair of pliers and just bend it out ever so slightly. You're talking about a millimeter or two. You're just going to get a better hookup ratio, but it's a fun bait. I'll throw it on like 14-pound fluoro. I've caught some big largemouth on it. I've had it where like 2 or 3 will come up and try and eat it at the same time, chasing the bluegill. So that was the bait after that. And then this year,
How durable are they?
Yeah, so it's.
I was just about to ask that.
It's pretty durable, I'll tell you. There has been some issues with I'm not saying they're not issues, but the dorsal fin, because the plastic is so thin, it'll tend to every once in a while, after you've caught a few fish, it'll fold underneath. So, it's just a matter of just giving it a little stretch and flapping it back up.
That's no big deal.
It's not a big deal. As far as the tail and everything else, durability, I've caught pike on it. It's good.
So do you
really
think,
good.
This is a question for all of you. Do you guys think like people put too much emphasis, how do you say that word? Help me out here.
Emphasis?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyways, so it happens every episode. I can't say spaghetti, banana, whatever. Anyways, I feel like people are always like, oh, these baits are the most durable, that's I'm buying them. And they're sacrificing durability for action or motion or whatever. So that's what I'm seeing lately. Like, I don't mind buying a few extra packs and going for a few more baits if I'm catching fish. Like, when does the average consumer say, hey, that bait's done its job? Caught 5 fish. Like, throw it at, right?
That's right.
But they're always like, I've been fishing. Like, I listen to guys brag about how long they've had something tied on their rod. It's like, dude, you really think it's working the same way it was working? Like,
Well, with the Vision 110s, I've got so many of them. Like, when the paint starts to come off them, I use them for pike fishing.
Yeah, right?
I love them.
I know.
For pike.
Yeah,
I
they're
love
great.
'em.
Yeah.
Nick,
Fantastic.
Like, when it might sound stupid, but I know, like in my past when we were working on bikes and stuff, and we had an O-ring or something that was getting warped or something,
yeah.
that we would boil it
Yeah.
and then take it in, and it would take its original shape.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever tried anything like that?
Honestly, I haven't. I've heard some people say that they do. I've never really tried it. But
Look at how the color pops.
yeah.
Oh, that's a good looking bait. And what's the retail on something like that?
I think the retail here is. I know in the States they're like. I think they're here like $12.99 or
that's
$11.99.
cheap.
It's not. It's durable. You're going to catch 20, 30 fish on it. Not a problem.
It feels durable. Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like if I'm paying whatever that is, say it's $17 Canadian, I feel like I got my money's worth.
That's
Yeah.
cheaper than a bag of Senkos from Canadian Tire.
You're probably going to get
It
bit
is.
off by a pike before it gets destroyed.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's a dynamite bait.
Yeah. And then this year we came out, so in the same family, we have this little baby right here we call the Sleeper Craw. So again, same thing, proprietary head. We played around with this quite a bit for a year, trying to get the plastic right, because it was working. Like, you'd catch a fish right away, but it would, the claw would break. Now we've changed up the plastic, and it's really good now, very durable. So same thing, the head is on the inside. It's just a tie and go. It's very flat on the bottom. This is a 5/8 ounce bait. Because of its flat bottom, it sinks very slow and natural. And that's what we try to do. Like with our baits, we really try and get that natural look on them, particularly in clear water. You know, in dirty water, you can get away with a lot of stuff, but when it's clear, those fish will see it coming down. It's got to look good. So it'll fall down. When it hits the bottom, it has that attack mode. So you can see the head's flat on the back. So as you pull it, it grabs the bottom and lifts up. There's air in the pincers, so it stands up like it's in fighting mode.
That's cool.
Now, I played with this bait. Yeah. This bait is amazing.
We'll take a video of that. Remind me after. We'll just shoot with up close so we can put it into the clip here. But that is wild.
It's incredible. This is the one I was most excited about just because, look, smallmouth, largemouth eat a lot of crayfish in our lakes up here, especially early into like late in the summer. This is a big thing that they eat. You could see the hook is inside. Hookup ratio is ultra good on this. The one tip I can give guys is that, again, this is like a jig. So you can take it and pitch it into docks and trees and stuff like that. This thing is very, very snag resistant. I threw it into some cribs, busted up logs, rocks, all kinds of stuff. I never lost one. Did not get one. Now, it'll get stuck. I give it a little pop and it pops free, but I never lost one on any cover. Very, very good. You can throw it into anything. What was I saying? I was just about to say something. Yes, the rod. Everybody, what the initial take on it is, okay, it's like a jig. I'm just going to get a jig rod. So they use like a extra fast, 7.2, 7.3, 7.5, whatever your favorite rod is. What I found with this bait is that you want, with all the sleeper baits, you want a rod that's got a deeper bend down that belly. It's kind of hard to understand why you can't wrap your head around it. But I found it's like a high-end Megabass rod called Evolution Super Diablo Spec R. It's almost like you'd call like a chatterbait rod, so it's like fast, medium fast. There's some good bend down that belly, and then it's all power. But I find the hookup ratio by going to a softer tip, which a lot of North Americans, particularly the Canadian guys that are used to throwing jigs and stuff like that, they really like those extra fast, stiff rods. It doesn't work very well with this kind of bait. You end up missing a lot of fish. So I think that deeper bend just allows that fish to suck it in better, and they always get hooked right up on the roof of their mouth, and it just gets pinned there because you got so much plastic. You can't really shake it. It's got nowhere to go. The hookup ratio is fantastic. I went out with my wife to do some shooting on this on Lake Simcoe. I caught 9 fish, hooked every one of them.
Really?
To the boat, yeah.
That's
really
awesome. Good. Can I see that one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I'm just like I'm like a kid in a candy shop right now.
And again, that's like, to me, like the best setup is like 12 to 14 pound fluorocarbon, depending on your rod. I wouldn't really go heavier than that unless you're getting into real gnarly stuff. And just go straight fluorocarbon, and it's a fun bait. And all our baits come in a ton of different colors, so you can match whatever you're doing. And then I always I'm not sponsored by Spike It, but those Spike It markers, I have them in my boat all the time. And I'll put a little chartreuse or a little black or whatever I'm doing to try and match that. I really love matching the hatch when it comes to stuff on the bottom.
So one thing I'm noticing about, and it's probably not just Megabass, it's all companies, but guys, when we're looking at, I'm not going back to price because we all make expensive stuff. Like companies I rep, like Evergreen, phenomenal baits, right?
Yep.
Higher end stuff, whatever. But people aren't realizing, they're buying a piece of plastic, but they're also buying like the weighted jig's already in there. The hooks that you're not buying.
That's right.
You're not buying any terminal tackle to hook it. You know what I mean? Like you already got it all included. So you're really just buying a one-piece shop. Like your rigging time's down in half. You tie it on and go. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people are forgetting. Like I'm after seeing it out of the package now, I'm understanding what you guys are paying for. I totally am like...
You're going to Pro Tackle tomorrow, aren't you?
I was already there today. Buddy, I'm already on the website. I have a cart full. Like, it's going to be, okay, what do you say? Okay, yeah. Oh, here we go. Pete, 1, 2. I got one for Sean.
Yeah?
I only did 2s. I didn't do 3s.
All right.
Sorry, buddy.
That's okay. I'll use my prize money.
There's no prize money at OBN, is there?
No, from the weekend.
You got second. Oh, did you get second?
So I got a second and a third.
It's like the first place loser.
I know. Yeah. Like I've been bridesmaid, but that's 4 seconds in a row, and now bridesmaid, right?
Are you scared?
I was talking to Sean earlier. I said bridesmaid 4 in a row, and now I got third. So now I'm the flower girl.
Yeah.
Like what the heck?
I think you got to go back the other way.
I know, right? I went totally the wrong way.
Yeah.
But there's a story behind why I had a bad day, but we won't get into that on here.
No. So another thing too, like for guys getting into this I call it JDM, Megabass craze. Yeah. It seems like there's way more soft baits than we feel, for lack of a better term. It's always been kind of like hard bait, right? Yeah. But like you guys are just coming out with more and more and more. I was looking at one here, I lost it, but like for example, even like your frog.
Yes.
Like Tell me about this big, I don't know if you have one or not, but this big gabbit.
Yeah.
Dude, Sean, we should have had this yesterday. I don't know, this damn flies down
Yeah,
here.
you know
Sorry,
they call
guys.
Kyle Carruthers Wish.
Yeah.
You wish. Yeah, he'll be wishing he never made this bet.
He's the white-ish.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah, it's been around for a while. I mean, I think that bait's been out now for at least 5 or 6 years. Great little bait. Throw it around a lot when I get out to G Bay. I don't do it often, but when I go to G Bay, I just want to fish largemouth, and I literally will bring a jig, one of those sleeper gills, maybe a whatchamacallit, frog, and I'm good to go. I love hitting them on top.
So here's the one I was looking for, sir. Bottle shrimp.
Oh, the bottle shrimp.
Yeah, I'll post a picture of this too, people to see. So
Yeah.
if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we appreciate it, and we know that's where most of you are getting it. But please go to YouTube and watch this episode. I'm going to try to put all these images in. You're going to see what Nick's talking about.
Yeah.
Bottle shrimp. Tell me about this one.
Yeah, so the bottle shrimp is like a plastic. It's a plastic bait that obviously looks like a crayfish. So what I found on that one, you can use it as a trailer, but where I think it really excels is if you want like a slimmer profile, I'll put it on a football head and cast it out there around rocks and, mixed gravel, weed stuff. And, just the same thing. So that head gets on the bottom. It lifts up as you're dragging it. And those the arms or the tentacles, they're very thick and there's a lot of weight to them. So you get a lot of this kind of motion going. It's a phenomenal bait, and they come in 2 sizes. I know they come in more, but
Yeah, there's a 4-inch for sure.
yeah, it used to be a 5-inch. I think we don't have the 5-inch anymore.
Tons of colors in it. Like
Yeah.
there's a dozen colors or something, roughly 10 or something. But
Yeah, we brought in Kenta, one of the pros, the elite pros. We brought him in to just specialize in our soft plastics to kind of get that transition from the Japan to the U.S. market and come up with some new stuff. We got a lot of great stuff, like the Hasdong shads have been like a...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about
Whoa, we can not... I had to put that button on there. We cannot talk about that thing here.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
we cannot.
But yeah, yeah.
It's time for you to go, Nick.
Let's move on. Yeah.
Whoa. No, but phenomenal bait. But
Yeah.
Told you this was a bad idea.
so like, see, I was telling some of the guys you were coming on the show, and I couldn't tell if they're like happy because they're gonna sell a bunch of baits or mad because guys are gonna be
Tell
on them,
them.
right? So I'm on the website though here, and your guys' video stuff, like right there, that last bait we talked about there, the shrimp the bottle shrimp.
Yep.
You guys got videos on how to like Nico rig it,
Absolutely.
flip and pit. Like you guys got everything here.
We do.
So,
The website was actually worked on. I would say there was some improvements, like really big improvements made about 3-4 years ago, and we work on that. So a lot of content in there. We do a great job with our videos, with our teaching anglers at every level how to fish our stuff, where to fish it, what kind of equipment. I mean, the one thing that what I found when I was doing these sort of on the water lessons and stuff like that and dealing with seminars, I think the biggest thing that a lot of anglers don't look at is their setups. They just worried about where the fish are and what bait they're going to throw, but you don't realize the importance of your setup. A lot of guys say, why do you have 10 rods? And we always say, well, you can't use a hammer where you got to use a screwdriver, and all that makes sense. But we spend a lot of time tweaking our rods for specific stuff. Now, having said that, it doesn't mean that if I'm using, let's just say I'm using like a Diablo Spec R, like I said, and that's like a chatterbait rod, and it makes a great chatterbait rod, but it also makes a great swim jig rod. It also makes a great swim bait rod. It also makes a great large topwater hard bait rod. Because of that deeper bend, it doesn't have that fast tip. When you're throwing, treble hooks, you want to have a deeper bend. So it gives that fish a chance to get a bigger bite. I always say that resistance at the tip is really key. A lot of guys don't realize that with a swim bait. They throw like real stiff rods and they're like, I'm missing fish or I'm losing them. That tip fights that bait. So that bait's working through the water. First of all, you don't get the same action. If you have a tip that's doing this, then it allows that bait to wobble the way it should. If there's resistance on that and you're reeling it like this, that tip's going to add so much resistance to the bait, it's just not going to allow it to do what it wants. So everything is done for a reason. The better setup you have for the bait that you're throwing, the more fish you're going to catch. Now, that might only add 1 or 2 fish, but I've said this before, whether you're fishing tournaments or a weekend or you're a weekend angler just fishing for fun, 1 or 2 fish make a difference.
Is there a section? Is there a section on the website that would tell you what kind of rod is recommended for each bait? And if not, why not?
If you go to the rods, if I'm not mistaken, go to the rods. I believe there is, like, I know we get a catalog and it'll say what this rod is good for. It'll say like jerkbait, spinnerbait, whatever, and give you a list of that. I'm pretty sure that's in the website. Having said all that, like, if you're looking to get into a Megabass rod, our dealers are so good, especially our top dealers here in Canada. They're so well versed about our product. They know everything. Like, get a call in, call them up, tell them what you're looking for, and they'll point you in the right direction. We have a lot of rods out there, from the Levantes to the Double X to the Destroyers. They're all different. Even though some of the models are the same. So we have a Diablo Spec R and a Levante and the Double X. Because the Double X is a higher grade graphite, it's going to react differently from the Levante. So the Levante is going to be better in some cases, the Double X. So we can really lock you in to the rod that you're looking for. And again, I always tell people, if you want to be a better jerkbait fisherman, for example, get the equipment that's going to help you be better.
Now, I was talking more like not from rod to bait, but bait to rod.
Or
like on the back of the package, like throw this on.
Or is it too much personal preference?
Yeah, so
it's like a golf club. Everybody has different.
You know what I'm saying?
100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about that for a second, right? Everybody's a little bit different in how they fish, how they work a jerkbait. For example, if we use jerkbait or whatever, use a crankbait. Sometimes there is specific. Look, if you want to throw a deep dive in crankbait, I don't care who you are, you need to throw that on a long rod that's got a lot of bend. You can't say, hey, I love throwing it on a extra fast 7-foot rod. You might love it, but it's the wrong rod and it's not doing you any good. But when it comes to certain things, you can there are some differences. You know, Sean's a bigger guy than me. He's going to want a bigger rod than I. You know, maybe my 6'5" is just going to be too small for him. He's going to feel it. It just feels like, I'm not getting that feel. It's too light for me. So he might want to go to a 110 special that's 6'11", a little bit bigger. That 6'11" might feel like the 6'5" does to me.
So when you're jerking, you're tip down, right?
Tip down or tip to the side. It all depends. I mean, the thing is, if I'm trying to keep that bait up, then I'm going to go tip at 10 o'clock. If I don't want it to reach the levels, and that's the thing, that's the beauty thing about the jerkbait. There's so many different ways that you can take one jerkbait and tweak it to do different things, different heights, different depths. It's just a fun, but I'm always looking at that, depending on what I'm trying to do. If I'm trying to jerk that bait down, get it to its max depth, I can't use a 6'11". It's too long. I'm just going to be slapping water, or I got to be in Kyle's walleye boat. Is the only way I'm going to
the wicked tuna.
Yeah.
Nice. No, that's awesome, man. Like, there's so much stuff. But we're gonna get into some questions here because we're gonna be talking baits all night.
Yeah.
So I would consider you. I know you can fish everything, but you've always kind of came off as you're a smallmouth guy. Am I wrong in that assumption?
No.
You spend a lot of time on big water.
Yeah.
You're guiding. So we had one question. It was, you're showing up to a new lake for the first time. You're looking for smallmouth. Where are you starting? Like, you looking at, besides looking at your charts, like what are you rigging up? Where are you going? What's your search bait? How you doing this, right?
So now it depends. If I'm going out, if I figure a time of year is important. So if it's early in the year, you think about how a fish moves from one part of the lake to the other. Early in the summer, I'm going to be looking near spawning flats. So I'm going to look at all these bays that may have some sand or rock. I use Google Earth. I'm going to try and get to that first drop-off or second drop-off, try and find something close, because they're probably going to be around there somewhere. As the year progresses, I'll go a bit deeper. We start getting into like 20, 30 feet. Now, the thing is about the smallmouth bass, like probably the largemouth, every lake has its little secret that a lot of times, unless you know somebody, it's hard. Take Simcoe, for example. Those fish stay shallow all year. Like, do you know anybody that's fishing in 30 feet of water in the summertime? Why? Like, I can go to Lake Ontario and catch them in 30 feet, but if you were new to that lake and you went in August or late July as a smallmouth fisherman, you'd be fishing deep. You'd be looking at all those shoals, outside edges, deep points, and there's a crap load of it, but there's very little fish out there. Now, they are pelagic, and they do follow bait fish and all that stuff. We don't get into that. Like, you can't target that. But They are shallow. Lake Ontario, there's a mix. They'll come shallow, they'll go deep. But I'm going to start off with search baits. You know, if I'm in shallow, I'm going to throw, you know, a spinner bait, a swim bait, something, a chatter bait, something that I can cover water. All I want to do at that point is just get a fish to follow to the boat so I can go and look, where was he sitting? What is he fish sitting on? Remember the first time I went to Lake Ontario? I progressed from Simcoe and I'm like, I'm going to go to Lake Ontario and I'm going to have them. Like, I'm going to own that lake. Dude, I went for 3 days. I caught 2 fish.
Wow.
It's such a giant lake. And you go into a bay, like I went into a bay, I can't remember the bay, and it took me 2 days to fish it, and I caught I think I had 1 or 2 fish out of there. Then I found another fish on the 3rd day, and I was so dejected. But, you know, what I found is that...
And now...
Yeah, now
you own that lake.
I don't. Listen, I wish I could say I own it. I think 2 brothers own that lake.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the thing is out there is that, you know, it took me a while to understand what to look for, and once you understand what to look for, then you start growing. But the only way to do that is to cover some water. You know what? The problem is with a lot of the Great Lakes, sometimes you get set back because you can throw a chatterbait all day, but if they're not in the right mood, they won't even follow it. So a lot of guys get to real finesse techniques like the small marabou jig, and you know, but that takes a certain rod. You just can't throw that on anything. It's super light. You can't cast it far. You can't fish that bait fast. You can't possibly cover water. But to fish a new lake, to me, you got to fish fast. Just get an idea, something that looks good. If I can cover 9 out of 10, if the 2 of us went on a lake that we didn't know, big lake, and you went and fished a Ned rig, and I started with a chatterbait and said, okay, for 1 day, we're going to go out and see what happens. Look, you might catch a couple of fish, but there's a possibility that the amount of time it's going to take you to fish, say, a mile stretch with a Ned rig, I could probably cover times 10.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to fish on the same boat.
Not. No, you're out, buddy.
Yeah,
You're done. Yeah, like I have a buddy in the back that just does whatever, but he can't because I have that trolling motor on 7 and I'm looking and just casting a chatterbait, a spinner bait. I just want a fish to come to the boat so I can go over there and check out what they're fishing, what they're sitting on, what they're looking for. Every lake's different. Some fish like sand, some fish like rock, something like rock weeds. I can't tell you how many different Great Lakes I've gone to, and they're all different in their own way. They're similar in the end, but different.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I think too, like everybody gets too like stuck. I'm gonna speak from experience. I get stuck in my ways, right? And you know, being an average level angler, I guess would be the proper word. I'm like, well, this worked on this lake last weekend, so I'm going to this lake and I'm doing the same thing, and it doesn't, or it fishes differently, or I just got to stop being so stubborn and go tie something else on, or like you said, switch the setup or this or that. And I think that's one part of fishing that people just aren't focusing on hard enough. It's like, hey, you're either like the complete gear geek and you have no problem spooling reels every weekend, switching line weights and doing all that stuff, where that guy's like, hey, this thing is lined, it's sticking like that for the year, and that bait's never coming off that rod.
That's right.
And that's where I feel like guys, you know, and I see it because when we're at stores selling, they're like, I need a drop shot rod, and I think people, and to no fault of their own, it's the only way to do it. It's like building a set of golf clubs. You need a putter, you need your irons, you need your drivers, and they're like, hey, I need my drop shot now. I need my jerkbait rod, and you know, and then eventually it evolves, and you got 4 drop shot rods, all a little different though, right? And I think that's where a lot of us, like me, I just like, I know I need to cut that off. I know I need to switch a color, but I'm like, whoa, what do you mean? I gotta execute and react better, quicker. You know what I'm saying? Is that making sense?
It is. Listen, most guys, especially like the weekend warrior, they get on something and then they want to go back there all the time because they have a short time on the water and they want to catch fish. But they're not doing themselves any good because you've wasted a day that you could have learned something new. And listen, when I was young, I had a spot on Rice Lake that was like, I mean, it was money. You could pull in there from September all the way to November and catch 23 to 28 pounds in like half an hour.
Sorry, did you say Rice Lake?
Yeah, Rice. So I always no, it's dead now. You can't catch it.
No third-hand information.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. We can't do information rules.
And the only thing we threw was a tube because we just had it in our brain that that's all they did. I remember when we first started fishing it, it was like we used to throw a flipping jig with a 3/4 ounce flipping jig and a Big Daddy pork, and thought, man, that's all they'll eat, and they would eat that. Then we got into the tube somehow. We're like, oh, yeah, the only thing they'll eat is a tube. But what we found is over the years, the more stuff that we started expanding on, and I stepped back from, I'm like, we said they wouldn't eat that, but they do. We said they wouldn't eat that, but they do. So what I would do now, instead of just trying to do what I was good at, I tried to take out what I wasn't good at. I didn't like crankbait. So I would take 2 rods and fish a crankbait all day long and suffer through it. And I suffered through it. It's terrible. I'm like, I know I can go there and catch a fish on a jig, but I'm going to throw this crankbait because I want it to be better. I want it to get that feel. Because there might be a time that a crankbait might be needed. And if I don't know how to fish it and I don't have the confidence, you're never going to throw it. Same thing with the topwater, the jerkbait. I used to throw jerkbait all the time, and I didn't throw anything else. I did it because I loved it, but I realized to be a better angler, if I want to be a better smallmouth guy, more consistent, I have to learn how to throw a drop shot, a Ned, a spy bait, a hair jig. That's how you get, like, there was always the question when I was young. I remember Denny Brower, David Fritz. Denny Brower was known as the jig guy. David Fritz is known as the crankbait guy. So the Bassmasters always threw this question up. Was it better to be really good at one bait or be just good, like an overall angler? And there's no question in my mind you're better off being a better overall angler. You're gonna be able to use different baits in different situations. Look, at the end of the day, a lot of smallmouth guys are really just drop shot guys. That's all they throw. And, more times than not, in the Great Lakes, you could probably get away with it. But there are situations where having something else might get you an extra fish or two. And I've said it before, all tournaments are all about is an extra fish or two. That's what separates one from the other.
Well, look what the fish could have done for us yesterday.
Yeah.
Right. Or and you look even at the Thousand Island Opens, like those weights, right? And it's even harder when you're not doing 5 fish at those. You're doing 4.
That's right.
But we have way more people listening to this that are just weekend warriors, or they're not tournament anglers at all. And from our surveys, I've got that people come to the CanCast, and that's awesome. But everything we talk about on here about tournament fishing, it goes into fishing every day. Whether you're competing with someone else or you're competing with yourself, or trying to get your personal best, whatever. But one fish can make your day.
Of course.
It can go from, like, we had a slow morning to I caught a 5-pounder, 4.5 pound large, whatever, and your day, man, that was awesome. That's
well,
all
now
it
you got
takes.
your confidence back. You got
Confidence,
your,
right?
Right.
let's
Yeah.
get after
I'm
it.
badass. Let's do it.
Yeah. So how long would you give, and this is a hard question, but somebody posted, I'm trying to word it where it makes sense. Okay. Practice. You're in practice, fish bite, or you do whatever you do. But however you pre-fish, you pre-fish. You go back to that spot the next day. They're not there anymore. They're not biting. You maybe get 1. You maybe get 2. How long do you sit on the money before you move? Are you the kind of guy that picks up and goes? Or are you the kind of guy that goes, hey, I'm camping out on this spot. I know they're here. I'm going to sit here, wait for their feeding window, and it might be in 3 hours, but I'm here when it happens.
Yeah, I mean, live scope has changed the way we fish nowadays. For the guys that have it, if you don't have it, when we didn't have it, I would make key casts from my, side imaging. I know that I'm casting to certain stuff. I haven't marked. If I'm not getting bit, and I've tried a couple different things, and I'm not seeing any bait fish on my 2D sonar, and there just isn't any life there, I'm out. I don't waste any time. I learned something really from the Johnstons, and it wasn't from talking to them. It's just watching them on the water. And I'm not a watcher. I'm very focused in what I'm doing. But when you're hanging around a bunch of guys that are just going around winning tournaments all the time, you tend to kind of, maybe look up for a second or two.
Yep.
And they never stay anywhere long. I mean, they're just fishing real specific stuff. Now, a lot of that comes from just their time on the water. They have so much time. They're so good. Both of them just, like, swarm around. But it did kind of get me to, like, speed up. And my buddy is so slow. Like, it drives me mental. So when he's on the trolling motor and I'm, like, half my hair is gone. You saw me 10 years ago, dude. I had a fro. It's all done. And 90% of it is me pulling my hair out because he's just way too slow. I'm like, I can't. We got to go. Like, find the biters. So there's 2 trains of thought. You might sit on a spot and they might show up, or maybe they're just off, but you pluck one off here and there. It could work, but for me, I'm just going to run around and try and find as many biters. Again, conditions play a role too. If it's super rough, whether I'm just fishing on a weekend or I have a day, I'm not going to drive around in 5-foot waves and pound the boat. I'll settle down somewhere and just kind of scope around and do the best I can. But for me, I'm looking for activity. There's active fish somewhere. We've always said it. When you had a really bad day, somebody catches them all the time.
All the time.
Right?
Yep, it happens.
Yeah.
No, I think it's just that fishing is changing, right? It's evolving, and it's no different than the hockey sticks that worked 20 years ago. Some became a better hockey stick. Baseball bats, right? That's a huge example, stuff like that. But you hit the nail on the head. Stuff that worked 10, 15 years ago, those fish aren't, they're educated, right?
Yeah.
Are you seen anything come back, though? Like, hey, this worked really good 15 years ago, died off for a bit, now it's come back. Or are we just evolving bait so much that we have to continuously just bring something new to the market?
Look, you know, the market is like anything else. It's like the electronics, just keep moving, right? So there are always new baits coming out. It's important to play with them. But look, the tube's been around forever. It catches fish.
Tube, here's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, so 3-inch tube, 3.5 inch, whatever. Now guys doing mini tubes, 2.5 inch this, and some guys already now are saying you only need a mini tube. That's all they're going for now.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on that?
No, I'm a firm believer that a bigger tube, like the traditional 3.5, 3 whatever it is, 3.5, 3.25, they still catch fish. I mean, at the end of the day, that bait mimics a small bait fish, a crawfish on the bottom. Fish eat it. So as long as they're eating small bait fish on the bottom and a crayfish, they're going to eat a tube. A lot of times it comes down to how you're fishing it. Color selection. Look, I don't put a lot of stock when it comes to bottom stuff. To me, it's like, look, if you have a dark one and a green one, you're good.
So match the hatch kind of.
Match
for bottom
the hatch.
stuff.
That's what they want. I remember I was out with an elite pro, and we were chatting about the drop shot and like a tube or a net or whatever. And his theory was that he felt like sometimes when they're on the bottom, like feeding down, because you have this drop shot and there's like, no, they're feeding down, they won't eat a drop shot. And I'm thinking to myself, well, if I take the drop shot and drop it, that bait's going to fall to the bottom. Why won't they eat it?
Yeah.
I think the thing is that the drop shot, you're always pulling it and it lifts up. When you throw a tube or a net and it goes to the bottom and sits down there in that smooch or, that small grassy stuff around the rock, it kind of almost disappears, and the fish goes down there and looks at it. And because they don't get a great look at it, they tend to want to eat it more when they're not super aggressive. So when they're like that, I like a bottom bait, like a tube, a Ned, a shaky head, something like that. When they're up off the bottom, then the drop shot is definitely a better bait. But I try to do that now. And now with our electronics, a lot of that shows up. Like, you don't even need to think about it. You see it.
This drop shot leader length.
Yeah.
How do you know, besides weeds and what you got to, like, when are you like, I'm going to shorten this up, wait a little closer to the bait, bring it, like, is it when you're looking at the fish feeding down, are you looking at that live scope information?
Yeah.
Like, if you're a readers, listeners, elaborate on that a bit.
Yeah. So if you're fishing with a live scope, I'm always looking at bait fish and position of the fish. If I'm not seeing a lot of fish, but I know they're there, or I see them pop up and come back down, I know they're down low, I shorten that lead, right? So I'll go down to maybe even as low as 5 inches from the bait. That way, when I'm working it, I'm popping it. I'm trying to, again, with a drop shot, the key is you want to keep the weight down, and you just want to move the bait. When you jerk it all up and down, it just gets too crazy. I've seen it when I'm sight fishing. If a fish comes over and looks at it and I give it a couple like hard twitches, 9 out of 10 times they just swim away because it doesn't look natural to them. So what I'm trying to do is keep the weight contact on the bottom and just move the bait very slightly. So if I want less movement, I go short lead. If I feel like they're up and they seem to be swimming around more, or I'm making long casts, then I go to a longer lead.
So if there's like suspended more in the water column, do you find like they're more hitting reactions, like getting it on the drop, or they're coming down like?
Yeah, they'll go down for it too. Like, then of course, again, with the live scope, because you see them, the whole key is to get that bait as close to the fish. If you miss that fish, 9 out of 10 times, unless they're super aggressive, they won't go down for it. But almost always, if they're eating and you get that bait by them, they'll go down and eat it.
So like, we were on the St. Lawrence this weekend. I was not in the Thousand Islands Open, but me and Tim went up, did some fun fishing, and I always learn a lot when I fish with Tim. He's not a good smallmouth guy. And it was that same thing, like, we throw them, basically hit the thing on the forehead right in front of them, and if not, get it out of there and reposition and do it again, because they wanted it right in front of them. And it was live scoping all day.
Yeah.
And hey, a guy like me, I love it. Keeps me in business. We sell them, right? You know what I mean? But it's just
Sure you do.
It is.
They sell themselves.
They
bud.
do.
Yeah.
But no. I just mean like we stare at that screen so much now.
I know. It's insane. Like, it's totally changed.
Different sport.
Yeah, I remember one day last fall, I left my battery. So I have a small lithium battery that I have in the front, and I take it out, charge it, bring it back in. And we were doing some stuff with the Megabass rep up here, and we were only 5 minutes away from the ramp, and I'm like, oh, I left my battery back at the car. She's like, let's fish today without it.
Yeah.
No problem. I do it all the time. Sure, I used to do it all the time. We go out there, and it's just like, these fish are on such specific stuff. I could, but I don't have the patience to be calm enough to do it. Now I'm like antsy because I don't know exactly how those fish are positioning on this stuff. You can drive over them with 2D, but then they kind of scatter about and they're not doing the same thing anymore. You just don't know where they are. With live scope, I'm always on it. You know what you're doing. And then it's just a matter of getting that bait, getting the right bait in front of their face, and they eat it. So it was hard. We caught fish, but it was tough. I mean, that thing just changed the way. I remember watching one of the first guys that had it. We didn't know what it was. We heard about it.
That was back when it was just Panoptics, right?
That's right.
It wasn't even
it wasn't even live, right? So I watched this guy come down. He puts his trolling motor down, and they're just like, whatever. I was fishing, and he's just like doing this, right? And two of them are standing up on the front deck. And my buddy's like, what's that guy doing? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe he drank too much last night or something like that. And, he just kept doing this, lifted the trolling motor up and left. Like, what was that all about? I don't know. Maybe he lost something in the water. Like, it was shallow.
Yeah.
We had no idea. And we found out after. I'm like, I get it now. But I still have guys that are just old school. They have it. I have a customer that has like a 16-inch Garmin GPS screen on the front, paid like $8,000 for it. He's got the live scope. He's got the better one. And I'm on his boat, and I'm looking at him, just watching him. And he's out there, and, I'm looking at him like, hey, why aren't you using your live scope? Well, I'm using it. I'm like, you didn't even look down once. You're just casting. He's like, yeah. I'm like, why do you spend all that money if you're not going to use the technology?
Yeah.
Like, it's there.
Yeah.
So, if you use it, it works for you. And I love it, man. I have a great time with it. It's just so much fun because, again, it's like, it goes back to kind of a little bit of the roots, even though it's completely off what we used to do. But, you're thrown to a dock for a largemouth. It's a target, right?
Yeah.
And I hated deep water fishing because there were no targets. There were, but you didn't know exactly where they were.
Yeah.
So you kind of lose a little bit of that. I'm throwing it out there, and I'm like jigging it a couple times, reeling. But now I'm like, you go largemouth fishing, you pitch that dock because you think that fish is on that piling or that stump or the edge of that weed. Now you're on that deep water, you don't know. But now Live Scope gives you that visual stimulation, and it's. Man,
Super
I love
efficient.
it. It's like
I love it too.
It's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
I can't fish about it now.
No, I can't.
I can't.
I think
So
I'm
now-
gonna get 2 or 3.
So now when you're guiding,
Yeah.
obviously you show your clients. Do you teach them
Yes.
about the live scope as well and how to use it?
Yeah, so my guiding is really a little bit of both because I'm not a typical guide. I'm not a live bait guy. I don't have live bait in my boat. If I let them know right off the hop. Look, if you're gonna come in my boat, I don't know what level of angler you are, but you're gonna learn how to fish. So for me to get them to get a bite, I have to teach them. So it's a lesson at the same time that I'm guiding them. I have to show them how to reel it, what to do with it, or else they're not going to catch any fish. If I just let them do whatever, they have no idea what's going on. So they're learning something from me. They're taking something with them. And then, the cool thing is they send me pictures after, oh, look at this fish I caught. I was doing this, or I was using that bait you told me about. I love it. It's hard because as an angler, especially a tournament guy coming from tournaments, everybody's so secretive. You don't want to really give out the juice.
Do you still think there's secrets in fishing?
I think there's some.
Well, you just gave out a whole
Yeah,
bunch
I
of
know.
them.
Yeah, you did.
Let's shut this show down. Let's get out
No
of here.
kidding. No kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about it before. Like, we did a whole episode on it, but I just think it's so easy for anybody to get an information, right? And it's,
Right.
for example, information rules. We're fishing an event this weekend.
Yes, we are.
We got to be careful who we talk to, what we say. But right now we're just talking baits, and we
Yeah.
make a joke.
No,
about
we're
price,
okay.
like-
We just can't
No,
take
no.
any.
But I mean,
We don't use
but,
any of
yeah,
this
but I
stuff
mean,
anyway.
it's so easy to get information now.
It is. Yeah.
So like, I could literally go on here and type in any lake I want.
Yeah.
I'm already on YouTube. I'm already way ahead. You look at the date the video was posted. Oh, this guy was out there just last week. He's a blogger or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're gathering so much information.
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line and when are we going to redefine these rules from tournament perspective?
Yeah.
And then from a weekend warrior perspective, like, I feel like you're so much farther ahead. I think that's why the lakes
Well,
are
the
getting
more
hit so
information
hard.
out there, the bigger the sport's going to get quicker, right?
True, for
Guys are
sure.
gonna-
Okay, Nick,
guys
I
are
got a
gonna grow.
question for you.
Yeah.
When you got into fishing, there was no Facebook. There was magazines, a couple shows.
Yeah.
Who was your mentor? Who do you say
Yeah.
you can thank the most for being where you are today?
Yeah,
Other
we're-
than myself.
Well, you and you and
Uncle Mark, stop.
yeah. Al Linder was like that in Fisherman was the biggest influence for me. And we had a show on TV that I would record on my VHS tape.
Yeah.
Like if it didn't record, it would be like the world's coming to an end. Like I remember,
You're never going to see that show again,
no,
right?
you're never going to see it. You can't find it. There was no YouTube. There was nothing like that. Information was hard. Like I told people, like it's so funny. When I was a kid, there were adults fishing, and they would always be like, "Oh, when I was your age," I'm like, "Oh, whatever. That's a typical old guy thing, right?" I didn't say that to them, but that's what I was thinking. And now I'm the old guy, right? Oh, when I was your age, man. Like the kids nowadays, they have no clue. Because if you think about even when I got in and the adults got in, there wasn't a whole lot of technology that was different when I started to when they were there. Yeah, maybe the rods got a little bit better, the baits have changed, but the technology when it came to electronics was not really a whole lot different. Then side imaging came out. I remember going to Rice Lake for the first time. I hadn't been there, so this is probably 1999 was the last time I fished a tournament there, and now I'm like 2007 or 2008. Side imaging is out, and I have side imaging, and I have no waypoints on this lake. And I have a friend of mine, a good customer of mine, that wanted me. It wasn't a customer; he was a customer in another business, but he wanted me to take him out and his customers out to Rice Lake. He rented a cottage, and I'm like, man, I haven't been there forever. He's like, yeah, I really need you to come. Okay, I'm gonna come. So I said, look, I need a couple hours. Rice Lake's not a small lake, but when you're used to fishing the Great Lakes, it's not a big lake.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had, my side imaging. I run out there. I'm like, oh yeah, there's the rock I fished there. I'm gonna mark that. Oh yeah, I marked everything in half an hour. Came back, let's go, and we smashed them that weekend.
That's amazing.
Like absolutely smashed them.
And that's a really good point because so many guys are stuck on live scope right now.
Right.
They forget to even use the side imaging.
They don't even
right?
use it.
They
Side
don't.
imaging is still,
And it's like they're always
Yeah.
at the front of it, and now it's like get on that boat, sit down, and watch. You find some crazy.
Well, that's what you
Crazy.
did on the back of the boat yesterday.
So I turned on your side imaging. I think that's my first fish of the day. Not that I caught a ton of them, but I turned it on. I said that to you. I turned it on. I saw a whole little rock. It was almost like a crack in the rock.
right.
I cast right into it, and boom, got and that's it. Because I'm like, well, if I'm in the back of the boat,
Yeah.
and I was fishing beside Sean at the front, but what were we that we were? Why did I go to the back? There was a reason for it.
I was fishing a tree.
You were fishing a tree. Exactly. So I went to the back, and I'm like, well, if I'm in the back, I'm going to turn on his graph at least so I can.
Yeah,
he was
see
not.
something.
I want to see. Well, yeah, side over there. Boom. There we go. And it worked. And that's what I mean. These guys, they don't. It was all about like the side image craze and this and that, and it's just getting better and better. And like we haven't even touched the surface of electronics yet.
No, I can't imagine.
Wait, what we have in 10 years.
Yeah, yeah, I can't imagine. Like next year will be different. There'll be more stuff coming out. Seems like every year it's kind of like I remember. I wasn't in the golf industry, but I was involved in it, being where I was at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. But like every year, you'd have a driver that comes out in the spring and another one that comes out in the fall, and it was so the evolution of the driver and the irons were working so fast. Like guys that were crazy about it would be selling off their clubs, getting new ones next year, and doing the same thing year after year after year. Fishing's kind of become that way, right? It's not to say that what you had last year is obsolete this year, but there's just always better and better and better and better. It's fast. At the end of the day, it's great for the consumer. It's great for the industry. It keeps the competition is so good because it keeps each company on their toes.
100%.
Yeah.
And even though like stuff, there might be some really good stuff at great price points now, like, like Daiwa, like we make a ton. Like you buy a Tatula XT for $120 and you're like, that rod is freaking amazing.
Of course.
Right? Like I used that thing
You
all
used
day
it
yesterday.
yesterday,
And what did I say to you, Sean?
I love this rod.
I love this rod. 120. I loved it. And I caught my personal best on Simcoe with a Tatula XT and whatever. But I just mean like it's still though, there's still a difference though when you use a quality product. And there's only so many companies in fishing still. There's only a few that are engineering and designing, not just going to China and grabbing the same rod and putting a different color on it. There's only a few of us doing it, right?
That's right.
Megabass would be one of them, Daiwa, whoever. And you pay attention to that stuff because you're gonna get the better quality stuff. Like, and you're gonna go through and go to your local dealer and feel stuff and talk to somebody. And I find it funny. And look, I'm gonna be biased. If it had my way, everybody's deck's gonna be full of Daiwa stuff, right?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm a Daiwa fan through and through. And we love all the brands that support the show. And we have Shimano guys come on here, and we got you, Megabass. That's what CanCast is. We're bringing everybody together. We're having fun. It's Canada. It's small overall. We're all buddies, right?
It is, right. Absolutely.
But I find it funny that guys are just like, they're one or the other. Like, they won't have one of this or that. And you know what? I'm OCD enough too that I have a hard time. Like, I couldn't even fish a St. Croix, even though they don't make real, you know what I mean? But
yeah,
you guys are weekend warriors. Like, go and talk to your local pro shop. Try stuff. Ask questions.
Get it in your hand.
Get it in your hands. Like, it baits
Well, not
you,
only
you know?
that,
It's
but
just,
after you get it in your hand, book a trip with Nick.
yeah.
Like, book a trip.
So that was one of my next questions, and you beat me to it. If someone wants a guided trip with you, how do they get in contact with you?
They can just reach out to me at Nick Cousvis Fishing on my Instagram. That's usually where I get it, or my Facebook. One or the other is usually where I get most of mine. It's all a lot of word of mouth. You know, I'm pretty full. I don't really know. I think I might have 1 or 2 trips left in the fall. I don't really. Again, I've already said I'm not the typical guide, but I'm also not a guide. I'm not full every day. I still like to go out and learn more. You know, I get stuff from Megabass all the time. I have to test new baits, new rods, and this and that. I'm really trying to figure out setups, and so I'm not out there every day, but I'm out there every day. I'm not guiding every day, but I'm really, it's because I want to learn. You know, a lot of times when you're a guide, especially out on the big water, you're constantly stuck with the weather. It's not, I can't take a customer out in 5-foot waves. I might be able to take you guys out and say, hey, we're going out, you're used to it. But a guy that doesn't get out often,
he's not having fun at that point.
He's not having fun, right? So I'm able, the cool thing about it is that I'll call a customer and say, hey, look, man, we're supposed to go out this Saturday. The weather looks absolutely horrible. If you can't rebook and that's what you want to do, I'm in. But it's not going to be fun for you. It's tough. I could take him to the river, but you were in the river in the St. Lawrence River. It's not an easy fishery.
No.
You just can't cast a spinnerbait and catch a fish.
Yeah.
You can't, like, there's current involved. There's stuff. If you have big winds that races the current more, it's a lot of drifting. You have to understand how to do it. You're snagged all the time. You're stuck all the time. So I give them the option, hey, this Saturday looks terrible, but Sunday looks good. If you can move it to Sunday, I left it open for you. So, you know, they appreciate that. I had a customer that booked for me in the spring. Couldn't go in the spring. I said, okay, we'll move it to the fall. Couldn't go in the fall. And then I moved them to next spring. So it was almost a year that we finally got out. And I'm okay with that. I want him to have a good time. I want him to experience I can give him the best experience he can have.
Do you ever have any issues with, and Mark knows what I'm talking about here, because you've been in this situation.
Here we go.
You ever any issues taking guys out guiding who are reasonable anglers and marking waypoints?
Yeah.
And, like, do you have a no cell phone rule? Even though, like, it's so easy with landmarks now, at least get your zone. But, like, guys, like, you guys make your living off this.
Yeah.
And you're putting hours and hours and hours and hours into it. And it's different if you're giving a buddy, hey, man, go out there, here's a zone and here's a spot. But do you have, like, how do you address that?
Yeah, you know what? It's not easy. I had a customer that did this to me, and basically I took him back to shore, gave him his money back, and sent him on his way. He had his Navionics turned on and was marking everything. I don't have a no sell rule. What I do is I just say, hey, look. First of all, I scope them out. So when somebody tries to book something, I go to their Facebook page, I go to their Instagram page, I try to find out who they're at. They get tricky because I'll have a guy that's got a buddy in Texas, and the guy from Texas calls me and says, hey, I want to do a guiding trip. I was in Texas, is great. But meanwhile, his best friend lives in Kingston, Ontario.
Yeah.
Right? It happens a lot. I try to explain to them, hey, I spend a lot of hours. I spend a lot of money looking for this stuff. I appreciate it that you take what I've taught you, and if you're on the water, you go and find your own stuff. Mm-hmm. Can I tell you to avoid this area? I can't. Can I tell you to not come here again? I can tell you. There's no law against it. I just hope that you respect and understand what it took me to find this, and you keep it to yourself. If you have to come here, I can't say no, but I prefer you go find your own stuff. I'm giving you all the tools because to get him to catch that fish, I have to explain everything. I can't hide it.
Yeah.
I can't just say, "Oh, cast over there." They know.
Yeah.
You know?
So I got a story. A mutual friend of Nick's and mine, Mike Galacci. Mm-hmm. He was out with Nick, and Nick was doing a guide service with him that day, and Mike was like, "Hey Nick, well, let's fish over here." And Nick just looks at him. He's like, "You want to fish over there?" He's like, "Yeah, let's fish right there." He's like, "Okay, fish over there." So Nick sits down. He's making some phone calls, replying to some emails, and Mike's fishing. And Nick looks at him. He's like, "Are you done?" He's like, "Well, I'm not catching any fish." He's like, "Exactly." He's like, "Why don't you leave the guiding to me? And let's go catch some fish." Right? Mike told me that story. How he
Have
loved
you
it.
ever had a tournament guy try to hire you on a lake that's where there's a tournament coming up in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I don't do it. Again, like I really qualify them, and if I don't feel right, I just don't do it. Like I said, I'm not doing it. I'm doing it full time, but it's not full time. I probably do about 35 guides a year. A lot of them are lessons. Like I have some kids now that I'm teaching on the water, from how to look for stuff, the type of baits that they should use, the setups, how to set up their equipment, their electronics, all that stuff. I walk through everything, things that I do. It teaches some stuff. It's a lot of information. I don't know how much. They're never going to get it all, but they process enough. And the thing is, I've said to guys, you're out on the water. I mean, a thing that happens a lot here, man, it's really frustrating, but there's a lot of guys, we call them the spot moochers. You're on an area, they're going to come by, GPS it, come back. When I'm with a customer, it's hard. Like, what do? I can't just keep lifting that trolling motor up and going. So, in certain situations, I look at the area. There's 3 boats in the area. The problem is now with live scope and the electronics and the mapping is so good. If you think to yourself that they're never going to find it, you're wrong. They're going to find it. If they mark anything near you, it's a matter of time before they figure it out. They're smart. They're really good with their electronics, especially the younger generation. It's hard. What can you do? So I really try to avoid areas that have boats the most I can. But some situations you're kind of done, right? Like the guy's paid a lot of money. I got to get him out. It is what it is. I take them out and do the best I can. See guys coming, I leave, and hopefully they don't figure it out. But
So I got a couple more questions for you because we're way over our time limit. You're gonna have to come back for another episode.
Yeah, sure.
Because this is like I don't even feel like we scratched the surface of what knowledge is in there. Like have you got
buddy.
like this is crazy. So one, back to Megabass. I'll go back to the company that I represent. We make a lot of great stuff that is in our Japanese market at Daiwa, and we also make a lot of stuff that we make for the North American market.
Right.
Are you guys the same way?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not just bringing it's designed for people in North America. You're trying to insert here.
Yeah, even our rods. So like the Levante and the Double X was specifically designed for North American anglers. They wanted input from all the pros, like from me, from the top pros all the way down to me. I do a lot of testing on their rods, their baits. Tell them, hey, this is what I think. This is what's good. This is what's not. And again, it's just my opinion. I write it down, but they really do listen to us. And there's a lot of feedback and questions that come back. Why I noticed that you said this. Why is that? That's the one reason that when I went to Megabass, I was at Shimano, went to Megabass. So Shimano as a kid, it was just like a typical discount kind of thing. This was a good opportunity for me from a smaller company that I would there would be more input, and I love it. I don't want to be a backseat guy. I want to be on the front. I want to be able to give my input. I think I put a lot of time on the water. And, there's some feedback that I can give them that'll help them. I understand a lot of I've been around in the industry part-time to full-time for the last like 35 years. So I can, 30 years anyways. So there's input I can give. And I love that I can do that. And it really helps them. We do everything. And now our rods, like so that North American rod, even when we went to the high-end Destroyer, we had our Destroyers. Now we have Destroyer USA. So again, we've taken those models from the entry-level stuff up to the higher-end stuff. Obviously, graphite components are much different, but specifically designed for the North American angler, bigger, beefier stuff. And then we've mixed in some of that JDM stuff, which a lot of the North American anglers have taken. Like I said, you can't throw a marabou jig on a typical medium light spinning rod. It just doesn't work. You got to go lighter, right?
Yeah. And I know there's a lot of guys that, like you, they want to be involved in the testing. Like you talk to some elite guys and they're repping some of the biggest brands and they don't even get asked about stuff.
No.
They're like, hey, here's what you're, and they hate that. And they're going for companies for maybe less money or whatever. They want to be involved. They want to get that rod built the way they want. They want to work on that bait. It's fun, right?
I love it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I get it completely.
Yeah.
So personal best fish, how big?
So my best smallmouth that I've weighed was 837 in the fall last year. I did get one that might have been 9, but we're not allowed to weigh them in the spring, so I couldn't. But it was an absolute giant.
Giant.
Yeah.
Was that in the early? That was the early season.
That was early season. But in the fall, my biggest one is an 837. It caught between me and customers probably 11 over 7 pounds in the last 3 years.
Wow.
Smallmouth.
And that's why you go with a guy like Nick if you need a guided trip. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, big time.
Trip you'll never forget.
Big time.
Ever.
I'll tell you right now, when we walk outside, I'm giving a deposit for a spring trip next year.
Yeah. No,
Maybe even a fall trip this year, too.
No,
Right?
that's
So he
awesome.
said he may have 1 or 2 days left. It's either you got one or none.
So,
Right?
yeah. So we're an hour and a half in. We usually go about an hour. Nick, I can't thank you enough. We want to have you back because I want to get into. I want to take some of these stuff and we want to get into some more details on it. I know this episode is going to go over awesome because it was a wicked serious episode for us. But usually we're laughing. This was just not because we were absorbing it. I'm looking at your guys' faces.
Yeah.
And if you watch this video back, I'm sitting here like holding my chin because I'm like, holy crap.
If Nick's
right?
talking, we're listening.
I got to go and rip all my stuff apart tomorrow, redo it all. Right? But this
fishing.
This is awesome, and we can't thank you enough, man. But, we always kind of wrap it up with, we're not calling it the final thought anymore. We're going to call it the last cast. What's on your mind, Sean, before we say goodbye, everybody? Got anything you want to say? Any final thoughts to wrap up the show?
Book a trip with Nick, man.
There you go.
That's it. Book a trip.
Yeah.
It'll change your life.
Mark?
Good luck to Kyle because you're going to need it.
I'll take any little bit. I will take any little.
No, I think Nick
luck
touched on it a little bit. I think pick up different baits. Don't be the one trick pony that I used to be.
So
and I'm having fishing kind of started to get stale for me because I was always throwing the one bait. I've expanded my techniques and it's like it's new again.
Yeah.
And I'm having an absolute blast and I'm whacking them.
I love it.
So
I love it.
Yeah, try new things. Don't be afraid.
All right. So I'm going to do this because I forgot to tell Nick about this yesterday. And Nick brought me an awesome care package. And because Nick's the man. And Nick, this is our old minnow bucket. I found this in my barn when I bought the farm.
Nice.
How cool is that?
Yeah, that's
so every
cool.
time a guest comes in, we're going to get them, throw something in. And at the end of the year, we're hoping to have a whole, we're going to auction off for charity or help an angler in need. That's the plan for the Can Cast show.
Yeah.
So
What do you do with that bait?
I know
don't
Nick,
put that one in there. Here, put the box of Kleenexes in there.
No. I'll put this in on Nick's behalf. And we're going to.
There you go.
So that so
Nobody
someone's
gets
gonna
to
win
know what that is.
Yeah. Put it in quick. We can't talk about that one. Not this week. Not till after this week. So, but no, Nick, man, it was awesome. So anyone you want to thank or anything you want to, like, we're definitely going to have you back. You have my word on that, but we got to wrap this one up.
Yeah. Guys, first of all, I want to thank you guys for having me here. I mean, it's really important for me to be able to, talk about product. I love it. I love helping anglers be better anglers. Honestly, I know it's like cliche and it's said all the time, but it really means a lot to me. When I was a kid, I was taught by a bunch of American guys that I met at Rice Lake when I was just camping out there with my family. And without those guys, like those guys took me under their wings and really taught me some stuff that I would have never learned on my own, particularly back then when you had nothing but like, I think if I had to send a message, I'm pretty sure I used a chisel and a rock to send it. Like I don't even think pens were around back then. So it really means a lot to me. I love it. Thank you guys for having me here. And, go out there and I hope you guys do well. I don't want to wish one guy more luck. May the best man
He
win.
needs more luck.
May the best man win.
I'll take all the luck I can get right now. I've been on a bit of a slump.
Yeah, for the last decade.
No, I haven't. You want me to start giving you some results, bud? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. You spend triple the time on the water than I do, and I'm still gonna beat you.
Okay. I'll take
Thing
that
is,
bet.
I
I'll
want-
take that bet.
In all honesty, I want you to make the team.
I want to make the team.
I'm rooting for you.
I would love for us both to make the team.
That
How
would
many
be fun.
how many guys make the team? Is it
I think it's
7
Oh,
now.
7. Whoa.
Yeah, they
7
changed. Actually,
now?
it might be 8 now because I think there's 7 and then plus the alternate.
Oh, okay.
It went from 10 and 11 for
Okay.
the alternate to they changed the rules this year. They've taken out the divisional and you go right to the national.
And where's the national this year?
Don't know yet.
Don't know yet.
Beautiful.
Don't tell
I
you.
love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give it my all.
Mhm.
And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'm gonna go out there and have a good time. I thought about this because our last episode we got a little serious, but like dude, I'm gonna go out there and we're gonna have a freaking blast all day, whether we get first or last. And I don't care. I just want to say, man, that was wicked. Don't miss it.
That's what I do every time I go
That's
fishing.
what I'm
buddy.
doing. That's what I'm doing. So, but my last cast of the night is, guys, I need you guys to like, subscribe, and share this, please. All these social media things realize now we are a business. They are literally pounding us down. They want me this every day. It's like, you got to buy ads to be, you guys know what it's like if you're in our shoes. Please like, share, spread it. If you have a guest you want to see on, message us, let us know. If you want some more information on something Nick said, message us, let us know. We'll loop back up with Nick. If you want to find out where a certain product is, message us and let us know. We have so many great companies that support CanCast, so many great vendors that come to the trade show. This is just one little piece of it, this podcast, and we want to help grow the sport in Canada. So thank you guys. We appreciate you guys coming in to everything, listening. We're on Apple now, Spotify. We're going to be on Google Podcasts, hopefully by the end of this week. YouTube, you can watch the video of this as well. Thank you all. We appreciate the support. And please like and subscribe. It would mean the world to us. Thanks, guys.